We are live now, sir.
Nilesh, thank you. Am I audible? Am I visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Nilesh. Good evening, namaste. Good evening, all. Behalf of Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine, I, Dr. C. N. Sundar, welcome you all for today's webinar. I do request Dr. Ram Prabhu, sir, Honorable General Secretary of Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine, for his introductory remarks. Dr. Ram Prabhu, sir, please.
To all. At the outset, I welcome Dr. Mala D. Menon, Adjunct Professor, Department of Pharmaceuticals, Bombay College of Pharmacy, Santa Cruz, Mumbai. Madam, we are very thankful for you for accepting our invitation to deliver a lecture on novel barrier formulations for veterinary applications. So, veterinary medicine is closely related to pharmacology. So, the therapeutic formulations are based upon the pharmacological inventions. So, the current topic is of very much importance to the veterinary practitioners as well as the faculty of veterinary medicine. So, we are very thankful on behalf of ISVM to welcome you, madam, for this webinar. I also welcome the members of ISVM and my colleagues, Dr. Kaldar and Dr. Nilesh, and Dr. Sujit Kumar for today's webinar. I welcome one and all for today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram Prabhu, sir. Thank you very much. Dear friends, we are really very fortunate today, and I'm really very glad that founder president of Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine, Dr. S.K. Mishra, sir, he has blessed us and congratulated us for organizing the series of ISVM Webinar 2020. I am delighted to read his message. Dr. S.K. Mishra, sir, he has given his message. I'm going to read his message. Good evening, dear participant. Hope you all are keeping safe and healthy during novel coronavirus pandemic that has affected our country for over 6 months now. The pandemic has affected, among other, academic and research activities in veterinary educational and research institute. Interestingly, during the ongoing pandemics, online webinars have emerged as a mean of interacting among senior and young professionals and dissemination of information on advances in various disciplines of veterinary science. I am glad to learn that the Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine is conducting Web Talk under ISVM Webinar Series 2020, wherein experts from different disciplines working in India and abroad have been invited to deliver online talk. So far, 12 webinars have been organized and more are planned for the days to come. Additionally, 3 webinars have been organized by the ISVM in collaboration with the Department of Veterinary Nuclear Medicine affiliated to Bombay Veterinary College, Mumbai, and Department of Veterinary Medicine, Nagpur Veterinary College, Nagpur. I wish to congratulate the speaker who have shared their rich experience with worthy life member of ISVM, academician, researcher, practitioners, and student. I am congratulate and appreciate the painstaking effort of the organizing team, spearheaded by Dr. D.S. Norial, President, Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine, and other members, including Dr. Ram Prabhu, General Secretary of ISVM, Dr. Chandrakant Galdar, Dr. Nilesh Sindhu, Dr. Shankar Singh, and Mr. Sujit Kumar. I urge the participant to benefit from the ISVM webinar series and to take good care of themselves and their beloved ones. With best wishes, Professor S.K. Mishra. Thank you very much, sir. This is the blessing and message that we have received from our founder, ISVM President. I'm thankful to Sir. Sir has given his blessing to us. Now we will switch to our today's webinar. Before initiating the webinar, I would like to introduce about today's speaker. Dr. Mala D. Menon has completed her graduation B Pharma, Master M Pharma, and PhD in Pharmaceutics from the University of Mumbai. Madam, having 34 years of experience in teaching, Madam is currently working as Adjunct Professor of Pharmaceutics at Bombay College of Pharmacy, Mumbai, India. Madam has guided 35 young pharma and 10 PhD students. The key research area of Madam are drug delivery system, conventional and novel, pulmonary and nasal drug delivery system, novel vaccine delivery approaches, probiotic formulation, novel veterinary drug delivery system, and ocular drug delivery system. Madam is expert member of research and recognition committee for the ad hoc board of studies in subject of pharmacy, SNDT University since May 2016. Madam has handled research projects funded by government agencies like AICTE, UGC, BRNS, and Mumbai University. Madam has also handled the industrial research project. Important among them are Mother Dairy, Glenmark, MS Infovet, Yash Pharma, Pfizer, and Lupin USA. Madam published around 43 papers in peer-reviewed national and international journal and published 4 book chapters. Madam and her group had more than 80 presentations at various conferences and workshops and received 18 best poster and oral presentation awards. Madam having 4 patent applications and 2 among them are on veterinary drug delivery system and which are in process of technology transfer also. As far as the awards are concerned, Madam is recipient of Dr. P.D. Patil Best Pharmaceutical Scientist Award in year 2015-16, Best Professor of Pharmaceutics Award, Promising Innovation in Solid Dosage Form Award, and Distinguished Professor Award. Such a vast experience Madam having in area of pharmaceutics, and since last 20 years, Madam is working with the development of novel drug delivery formulations as far as veterinary medicine is concerned. So I do request Mala Madam to initiate her webinar. Thank you very much. I do request Madam to start her webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Galdar, for this very kind introduction. I would like to thank Bombay Veterinary College, the Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Ram Prabhu, and other members of the committee of the society for having given me this opportunity to present the research work of my group in this forum. I think it is, from what I've heard, I think it is a very extensive society, lot of very senior members, and a lot of activities. It is a privilege to be here. I would like to thank Dr. Galdar because he is the person who has been coordinating with me, and also Dr. Nilesh, and they have supported me in trying to set up my slides and this link. I would also like to thank Dr. Samad, who is the ex-dean of Bombay Veterinary College, because he is the person who initiated me into veterinary formulations or veterinary drug delivery systems. I think maybe that was about 10 or 15 years back when I had applied for a BRNS project with the Department of Atomic Energy, where we had applied for inhalation formulations. Now, during that time, we were actually, one of our aims was to do lung deposition studies in animals, so gamma scintigraphy. And that time, the BRNS committee introduced me to Dr. Samad. And I think the animal imaging, the gamma camera imaging system was new. And that is how we collaborated. We wrote the project together. And so we had very good work done in lung deposition, gamma scintigraphy of various lung delivery formulations. And at that time, I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Galdar and Dr. Gaikwad. They were instrumental in helping my group of students. With these few words, I don't know, somewhere for many years, this association has been there with veterinary formulations, and Dr. Samad gave us many more ideas. And with his group, we have developed very many formulations. And now also he still continues to collaborate with us. And there are various formulations in the pipeline. So I will start with my talk on novel barrier formulations for veterinary application.
Kindly make it
Now,
full screen, ma'am.
hello. Yeah, can you hear me? Is the audio clear?
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Kindly make it full
Okay.
screen, ma'am.
Huh? Oh, sorry. Yeah, now it's okay. Hello.
Perfectly
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, perfectly. Okay. Thank you very much. I think I am an old timer and still getting used to this. I trust that everyone is uh, fine in this pandemic times, also your family members and colleagues. And this is a strange situation. I mean, I would have preferred to talk in person at a gathering, at a seminar. Now, all these systems are new, and I think we have to get used to this new normal. Okay? My talk will cover an introduction to veterinary medicine, which will all the, I think a big group of attending this seminar are veterinary personnel. And I think but I will quickly go through those because there are also pharmacy professionals. So I will just, then I will talk about barrier formulations, what is the need concept. Then I will speak specifically of some examples from our group where we have developed barrier formulations for bovine mastitis and wound care or wound healing. Now, of course, veterinary science is that branch of science concerned with prevention, control, diagnosis, and treatment of diseases, which affects. Now we have different animal groups, domestic animals, pet animals, and wild animals. And we have to treat them and prevent the transmission of these diseases. Animals, grossly, we can divide them into food producing and companion animals. Uh, Now, when these animals are afflicted with diseases, what we have is we have reduced productivity and poor quality of animal products. Man depends on animals for products like milk, meat, a lot of other goods like leather. So these are affected. And of course, the animal health, morbidity, and mortality is affected because one animal gets it, you cannot isolate it so easily. And when there are herds, becomes a very difficult entire herd. So it becomes a very difficult situation. Now, further, when animals are affected, there are impact on human beings in terms of economical losses because milk production may be low, meat production. So there is a shortage of animal products, reduced income and subsistent livelihood for farmers and animal husbandry people who live on these products. Further, I think this we have to emphasize when animals get affected, a lot of people who deal with animals may be afflicted with zoonotic diseases and there will be a transmission to man. And I think this current COVID situation is something, which we need to learn where this has become a huge, it is actually something which is transmitted from some rare animals. So this danger is always there and we need to be alert about it. Now, formulations or delivery systems uh, for veterinary drugs, basically almost the same guidelines apply as we discuss about human delivery systems. Now, here there are two important issues which I will emphasize. One is actually in order to administer formulations to animals, it should be easy because you may have to, large numbers maybe have to be administered the drug. There may be repeated stress if you have to repeatedly dose an animal. All these can create problems with conventional formulations. Now, another aspect is issues of residues in food. When we treat animals, and if these same animals, if the drug is leaving residues in milk and uh, meat and such other products, again, that can cause a lot of dangers. And therefore, on the whole, we would prefer some sort of novel systems, sustained or controlled release products, which will give us a lot of benefits, which we'll see a little later. And overall, we can have better management of the disease and better economy in terms of cost as well as time. Now, different delivery systems, conventional for veterinary, are similar to those used for humans. We have oral formulation, topical, injectable, ophthalmic. There are specific formulations administered to body cavities. Now, what is not there in animal? You have spot-on formulations for many of these parasites, fleas, where you just put it as a spot, and that remains for 30 days. It protects it from fleas and such other parasites. Collars, which can be which is impregnated with the drug. Very often, when you have large herds to be uh, administered medicine, the drug can be mixed with feed or water, or there are lick blocks. Wherever they are in the vicinity, there are blocks where the drug is impregnated and the animal licks it. Drenches for special administration where it is difficult to give the dosage. Now, overall, we would prefer novel sustained release dosage forms or SRDS, because here there will be better patient compliance. That is, the animal, you do not have to frequently administer drug. So therefore, less stress to the animal, overall reduce side effects because you'll be using less dose, reduce dosing frequency, animal handling is much less. Also, overall better therapeutic outcomes and financial benefits. Now, in animals, there are challenges because many of the formulations have been delivered over extended periods of time, weeks or months. Formulations like Compudose, which are to regulate stress, uh, a lot of such formulations are given where these are administered, and for 1 year, 2 years, it can continue to give the drug. Now, very often the environment in the GI tract is harsh. So rumen retentive formulations, large fluid volumes. So we have to tackle with the harsh environments in the GI system. Now, another thing is now animals, when you dose them or when you apply the formulation, now they are applied at very random sites in the farm, in the barn. Now, in such places, there may be elevated temperatures, moisture. The conditions in the field have to be considered. Now, we'll move over to the next aspect, that is barrier formulation. Now, first of all, what is a barrier? A barrier is something which will prevent or block the passage of a substance through it. Of course, we are familiar with highway barriers. Uh, we have barrier contraceptives. Immune system, there are several barriers, a first line, second line, where this is a barrier against the invasion of pathogens. You have placental barrier, blood. These are all akin to something is prevented from entering a very key area. Now, of course, the COVID situation has imposed, going on giving this example, the concrete example, where again we have to have a barrier of a mask and see that we are protected from the pathogens circulating in the air, the virus in the air. Now, from formulation point of view, when we develop a formulation, it should be a barrier against environmental ravages. Now, that is why we have effective packaging, containers, foils, blisters. So that will protect our dosage form. Heat, light, moisture, UV radiation. Now, key among this is protection against microorganisms. In vivo, we have to protect against the harsh environment. For example, we have enteric coating, where we try to protect our drug from the high acidity of the stomach. So it directly will release the drug in the intestine. Now, amongst these, the antimicrobials are the most important. Now, in a number of cases, now we can have coatings, encapsulation, Film formulations. Film formulations are very important. A film, when it is applied here on the skin, it will be, in fact, you can have invisible film, so the person doesn't have to show that he's worn that, or an animal, again, you can apply it. Uh, you can have a lot of these to protect the mucous membranes, so the oral cavity, the vagina. Now, in all these regions, you can apply, and nasal mucosa, and hence it will protect against specific chemicals entering, or in our case, we are mainly talking of antimicrobial protection. That is the most important. Now we come to in situ gelling and film forming systems. Now, basically, we're now applying a film. Now, it may be sticky, it has to adhere effectively. Pulling off is difficult, and especially in animals. So, in situ gelling systems are basically uh, formulations which will thicken or gel. So, they are liquid at the time of administration, but transform into a gel, or when they collapse on the skin surface or the body surface, it will form a film. Now you have the sol phase, which is the flowing liquid, and the gel phase, which it is converted to, which is non-flowing. Now, so basically there is a sol gel transformation. Now this transformation can be triggered by several mechanisms. As is seen in this figure, you can have thermoresponsive, that is a change in temperature. It can be because of other stimuli like pH, a change in the pH, say in the stomach pH, intestinal pH, nasal pH, the eye pH. It may be responsive to some magnetic field. It may be the light. So where you're having sunscreen agents and all that, it can be light triggered. You can have bioresponsive systems within the body where it may be responsive to glucose, urea, or such other biochemicals in the body. Now, what are the advantages? It's easier to administer, sustained release, because in all these systems, we're making use of a polymer. So the drug can act as will be in a depot, and it will release the drug slowly. It is less cumbersome, less invasive and painful compared to implantation, because implantation will involve a surgical procedure. Again, you have all the advantages of reduced frequency and uh, the undesirable side effects of sustained release systems. Now, this is an example where this is a pH triggered in situ jelly. So at pH 4.5, now example is carbopol. Many of the carboxyvinyl polymers at a pH of 4.5, it is in a liquid state. At pH 7.4, that is at body pH, it will convert itself into a rigid gel. This can be exploited for ophthalmic preparations, for in injectable preparations, where rather than implanting, you can inject an in vivo in the tissue fluids at pH 7.4, it can convert into an implant. Now, having looked at the basics of barrier formulations, now we will, I'll just talk about some examples from our group. First is bovine mastitis. Of course, here bovine mastitis is a disease which is very familiar to the veterinary profession. Now, what is mastitis is an intramammary infection where there is an inflammation of the mammary glands. Now, the basic starting point is because of microorganisms entering through the teat orifice, enters the teat canal, and there it multiplies and proliferates, causes severe inflammation and other reactions. Now, now you can have subclinical mastitis where it may be at a low degree. Now, this is based on the counts in milk. Milk, if you do the microbial counts, this will give us an idea of whether it is subclinical or clinical. Subclinical can be treated, and rapidly the animals can come back and join the herd. Clinical cases are where if they have to be removed from the herd and they have to be treated for prolonged periods of time. You have in bovine animals, you have a dry period. So there are in the 360 in a year, 60 days is a dry period, and the remaining is a lactating phase. So in the non-lactating phase, uh, there is more the prevalence of the infection, or there is a greater chance of the infection for several reasons, because basically uh, 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 once in the normal lactating phase, the animal is since it is milked every time, whatever pathogens which might have entered. So normally there is a keratin plug which seals off after the milking. It may remain open for small periods of time, 5 minutes to 10 minutes. During that time, if some microbes enter, during normal milking, then it will all be flushed out. But during the dry period, the keratin plug gets sealed. So whatever microbes which have entered will remain there, and they will remain there for the period of 60 days, during which there is a lot of proliferation of the pathogen. And this then, when subsequently they come back to the lactating phase, it becomes very severe and it will affect the milk product. Now, outcome and there are the outcome of interaction of various factors which result in the bovine mastitis. Of course, the host pathogen, that is the animal, and the pathogens which are there in the environment. What are the hygienic conditions? That is the husbandry practices. Now, region-wise, there is a lot of variation. Because in our country, from what the conditions are not very good. That is what I have understood from whatever I've read and whatever has been described to me. There is a lot of because of the poverty and the other the factors. Uh, this results in reduced milk production, and there are severe economic losses in the dairy and animal husbandry, which are commonly found in causing bovine mastitis. And the major predominant one is S. aureus, Staphylococcus aureus, which causes very severe infection. Now again, here some of the other health impacts in the animals themselves. It affects the reproduction efficiency, result in a lot of hazards. There are endocrine changes. Then these infections can spread to humans. So that is again another danger. Now, economic impact. Now here the figures are a little old. Uh, maybe say 2 or 3 years back. Now, United States, there is an annual loss to the dairy industry because of mastitis. It is almost $200 per cow. In India, it is much higher. It is again there is a almost 6,000 crores. Again, there are 70 to 80% is subclinical mastitis, and cows and buffaloes, it is almost an equal prevalence of bovine mastitis. Now, the control and treatment, one of the methods is systemic administration by either oral or injectable, then intramammary infusion where antibiotics are used. In fact, large amounts of antibiotics have to be used, and this results in antibiotic traces in milk. Now, this again creates a problem because this can lead to antibiotic resistance. So again, it is a very not a good thing. Um, and slowly, the antibiotics, most of the regulations now are coming wherein you should not use antibiotics. Antibiotics have to be used to a minimum. Now, on the other hand, for dry cow therapy, that is when you treat the animal during the dry cow, there are no withdrawal periods. There are no residues in milk, so that risk is not there. An antibiotic infused after last milking is not milked out. And these high concentrations remain in the mammary gland for a good period of about 2 months. Again, here the importance of dry cow therapy. So what is stressed is daily antisepsis is required, but basic treatment is required during the dry cow period. Now it is said that 50 to 60% new infections emerge during the dry period. Now this is because of regression uh, and formation of keratin plug. Now during this period you can give higher doses. Now it also affects or it also protects the early lactation phase. The marketed products for mastitis, most of these are intramammary infusions which are given. Many of them are oleogenous preparations. Some of them are polymer based, which are external teeth sealants. Now, many of these contain organic solvents. So then that again is injurious to the animal skin. Another product is bismuth subnitrate in a paraffin base, which is a very popular product, Orboseal, where which is given during the dry cow period and it remains there as a seal during the entire period. Again, policies for mastitis. Again, these figures are 2013. Again, we could not get any latest figures. 5-point program in the developed world, we can see there are so many points. Post milking is emphasized, culling of chronically affected cows, routine maintenance, and there are India again. There is a policy decision which has been taken to strengthen research on diagnosis, treatment, and management, and also development of vaccines. Now, vaccines still there is a big route because there are so many pathogens involved. It may be a little difficult. Now, we have developed two types of formulations. The first one is an in situ gelling formulation incorporating antibiotic. Now, this was developed as a thermoresponsive uh, in situ gelling system, which is to be given as a dry cow therapy. Now, here this was a temperature triggered system, and here we've used the system whereby once it is infused into the teat, it will form a gel and it will give a sustained release of the incorporated drug for a 60-day period. And the model drug which we used was neomycin, which is a broad spectrum antibiotic against gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Now, we'll just dwell upon the mechanism of thermoresponsive gelling. Now, basically, here there is an example of poloxamer, which is a widely used thermoresponsive polymer. Now, basically, the polymers used are hydrogels. Now, when immersed in water, when they come in contact with water, they hydrate, imbibe water, and swell to different degrees. Now, at low temperatures, these macromolecules are hydrated and the interaction is more with water. So there are a lot of hydrogen bonds with the vehicle and there is little polymer-polymer interaction. A slight degree of entanglement may be there. So overall, it is a highly viscous solution. As temperature is raised, the polymers gradually lose their water of hydration and the viscosity starts decreasing or declining. Finally, at a certain point, at a certain temperature, this will vary from polymer to polymer. It nears complete dehydration, and then the polymer starts associating with the polymer molecules start associating with the other polymer molecules in the medium. So polymer-polymer association takes place, or these are known as hydrophobic interactions. And this results in a network structure, and it results in a sharp rise in relative viscosity. Now, several cross-linking agents, may be ions or several other substances, phosphates can be added, which can enhance this. So these also will cross-link, and overall the cross-linking intensity increases, making the formed gel more rigid. Now I'll talk about the work that we did. We tried with various polymers. We tried with poloxamers, various grades, chitosan and its derivatives, cellulosic polymers like HPMC, that is hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose, hydroxyethyl cellulose. And we also tried several cross-linkers like calcium, uh, tripolyphosphate, and various additives have been tried. Now, overall, the procedure was that you dissolve the polymers in cold water, you make the polymeric dispersion with other additives, keep it overnight at 4 degrees, that is at a low temperature, that will enhance the hydration and dissolution of the polymer, and check for in situ gelling. Now, how was this checked is, we gradually heat the formulation composed of the polymer and other additives at a rate of around 2 degree centigrade per minute. And now here our aim is that at body temperature near 37 degrees centigrade, grossly say 35 to 39 degrees centigrade, it should trigger the gelling. So it should form the gel at 37 degrees centigrade. Now, as you can see that one of the formulations that we developed, the most optimized one, now initially it's a liquid, but when you invert it, now it has already formed the gel at 37 degrees centigrade. Now, once we had arrived at the optimum formulation, the next was sterilization of this, because we are going to give it intramammary. Now, here we had to sterilize some of the components by membrane filtration, some of the components by autoclaving, and then mix the components, sterilized components, under aseptic conditions. Now, then we have characterized these systems for various properties, in which for our purpose, the key tests were rheology and in vitro release, and afterwards in vivo studies. Now, in vitro release studies, we have carried out these studies in pH 7.4 buffer. So here, now we have seen various formulations, sterilized, unsterilized, and you can see that it is releasing the drug over a period of 30 days. Now that was the maximum that we got, although we had aimed for 60 days. So we can see that the sterilized formulations are releasing at a more rapid rate. Hence, we so therefore we have to again modify the polymer concentration, because probably during autoclaving there is some sort of polymer chain breakage and there's a reduction in viscosity. So we had to modify the polymer concentration so that after sterilization it will give us the same essential drug release as the unsterilized one. Next is rheology, or the flow properties. So here this we have carried out with Brookfield viscometer, a rotational viscometer, and we have captured the entire rheogram. So this is before gelation, the viscous solution at room temperature or 25 degrees centigrade, where we can see now here you have the rate of shear versus dial reading. We see that it is near Newtonian, or maybe a slight degree of pseudoplastic effect, that is shear thinning system. Now, after gelation, that is after it has converted to gel, we see that there is a decrease in viscosity. See, the dial reading has reduced. Here it is up to 60. Here the dial reading has reduced, indicating that it has become viscous. Now, again, the down curve is, there is a shift in the down curve to the left side, indicating that there is some degree of thixotropy. That is, it is the sol gel transformation is evident. Now, in vitro release, we also validated that method microbiologically. That means what we did was, here neomycin was estimated by colorimetric method. So here we had our formulation in a dialysis bag, which was placed in the pH 7.4 buffer, maintained at 37 degrees centigrade. So we have got cumulative release up to almost 90% in a period of about 30 days or 1 month. Now, whatever aliquots which we withdrew for colorimetry, we also, part of it, we did a microbiological evaluation. That means we checked the turbidity. We evaluated against S or ES and the decrease in turbidity or difference. So this we have done, and we find that again, essentially, there is no growth. So it is antimicrobial. So up to about 20 days. Now, further to this, we did the mucous membrane irritation testing. That is, we moved over to in vivo studies. Now here, ocular irritation or eye irritation, which is a measure or equivalent to mucosal irritation, was used in New Zealand rabbits. And the score showed that it was non-irritating to the mucous membrane. Now all these studies, in vivo studies, were carried out at Bombay Veterinary College. Now, next is mammary gland irritation testing. This study was conducted again in the teat of goat, where a sample was inserted into the teat. They were examined for a period of up to 72 hours for any irritation, erythema or redness, and inflammation. So again, here we found that there were none of these signs, and hence it is safe. Now, next was in vivo plug formation and intramammary retention by gamma scintigraphy. Now here we have used again female goats of the specifications. Now our formulation, the optimized formulation CGN11, which gave us the thermoresponsive gelling, was mixed with the radioisotope technetium complex with DTPA, and this was now we had to check the labeling efficiency. Labeling efficiency was good, more than 90%. Gelation time of the radio label formulation was also the same as that of the optimized formulation without the radioisotope. So this indicates that we can use it. This validates our process. Now here the gamma camera was used, and after administering, and static images were recorded, and plug formation was recorded for a period of up to 12 hours. Now here we also picked up blood samples and milk samples, and we have checked. So milk samples were free of technetium, but blood samples were containing some free technetium, small amounts, which may be due to leakage during injection. Now these are the gamma scintigraphy images, where we can see that up to 12 hours in the teat, there is still the gel. So it has not leaked out, and it is resident or remaining in the teat canal. Now here there is a limitation. Now we are actually planning for a 60-day retention, but with gamma scintigraphy, this was the maximum that we could prove that there is plug formation and it is retained for 12 hours. Now further, how to prove about this long duration of time? So we decided to have a simulation study where we gelled the formulation in a dialysis bag and placed it on seeded agar. So we used Staphylococcus aureus, and what we did was we made something like a small ditch. Now, as we have antimicrobial study, we have the discs being placed or the boards being made. The same way, we made a small ditch, and we placed our sample in it, and every day we transferred it to fresh medium, the seeded agar. And you can see that here some representative images. First day we see a zone. Again, the 25th day up to 45th day we have done. After that, somehow it was difficult to handle the system, but the gel was still intact, and also we are seeing the antimicrobial activity. So although in our in vitro release study, we are showing activity only up to 30 days, but probably in the heat where you have less of fluid, this might be effective for a longer period of time. So still we have to resolve. Now the final formulation, we had polymer and drug solution separate. Polymer and drug solution was in one vial. The cross-linker solution was in a second vial. Now, before administration, the two are mixed and then it is administered. So here it forms a gel. So it is formed within 2 minutes. Now, seeing the uh, uh, advantage of this formulation, I think with Dr. Samad's support, we had some discussions for commercialization. And uh, in this, we realized there were a lot of problems which we still had to resolve. One is that if this formulation has to be transported, now quite often in our environment itself or the temperature in our conditions in our country or many other tropical regions, the temperature goes beyond 37, maybe even 40 in summers. So there it will already gel. Now, so we have to store it at low temperatures. Now, ideally would be refrigeration below 25. Now, this may be difficult in farm environment in our country, where all our farmers are in remote areas, where the refrigerators are there in all the farms. We still have to understand. Second is, what was cumbersome is mixing the two solutions just prior to administration. In the field, in the farms, when large herds have to be treated, this is a very cumbersome exercise. And this itself might result in contaminating our formulation. Then now if you have to have, then we thought of, packing it in some, say cold chain, and all these things become very expensive. We need to give this product at a reasonable cost. And rather than 60 days, we thought maybe 30 days is easier to aim for. 60 days would be too long, and we are not. Now, hence, we had modified the formulation and the procedure so that we have the entire, what we've seen in the earlier slide, the polymer, drug, and the cross-linker in one container in a gel form. So what we do is we prepare it and gel it. We raise it to the temperature of 37 or 40, and we were packing it in the final syringe. So in the intramammary syringe. Now, here, once we did that, we did a thermoreversibility study. So here, what our aim was that in the farm, the person who is administering can be told that you have to cool it, say in ice water or maybe cold water, where it will liquefy and then it can be administered. So it will get back to the salt form once it is cooled. Now this becomes a more convenient, there is no mixing, no chances of contamination, it will be more economical. Now, thermoreversibility, now in this case, what we did was we had our formulation, we gelled it, we found out, so that is the first, so this is our gelling behavior of the formulation. Then after that, we again reverted it back to sol, again gelled it. So this we continued. So after first thermoreversibility cycle, we see that again this is quite effective. After the fifth thermoreversibility cycle, again we still are getting a similar flow pattern. Now the viscosities are given here. We find that in fact it is becoming more stiffer, the gel, with subsequent heating and cooling. So this is an advantage whereby, so during its transit or during use, wherever it is used, it will not affect our formulation. It can still be cooled, liquefied, and it can be administered. And there are more easy to handle, less chances of contamination. Further, now to understand the 60-day period, 30-day period, we developed an in vitro model to study the sealant effectiveness. Now here we had a small tube, glass tube, in which we place, we have a syringe in which we placed our gelled formulation. In this tube, we have a culture of Staphylococcus aureus mixed with nutrient broth and sand. So this is where it mimics the farm environment where the animals will sit or which it is exposed to. We have placed a foil. There is a cotton plug and a foil on the top to seal the syringe. Once we've added our, so we gelled the formulation, the sterile formulation. Further, now we covered this with plasticine. Now, just go to the next slide. So this was the arrangement that we had. This is the actual apparatus. And what we did was, at periodic intervals of time, daily, we pierced this rubber stopper and immersed it in this mixture of sand and culture. This was done for a period of 30 days. And daily, we have picked up a small quantity from the top portion of this system and streaked it out on nutrient agar. So here, for a period of 60 days, there was no growth, indicating that our formulation is able to act as a barrier and it will not allow the permeation of the microorganisms from the sand mixture. So this proves our 60-day concept in vitro. Now then again the issue remains still. Now always the people want a proof of concept, an image. Now here this was there right in the beginning. After we did the gamma scintigraphy, we had tried with barium sulfate, we tried with various other substances, but all of them were interfering with the jelly. So therefore then somewhere, because this Orboseal is a bismuth salt, so we thought maybe we could try bismuth, and we made bismuth oxide microparticles and dispersed it in our gelling formulation. Now at high concentrations, it was interfering with the jelly, so we optimized the concentration. So we used very low concentrations, whereby it will not interfere with the jelly. And this was then injected into the teat of buffalo. Now here we found that initially we tried in the syringe. So here we could see the plug formation, and so this proves that bismuth can be used in our system as a proof of concept. Now again, this is after injecting it into the teats of buffalo. Now, so this completes with the in situ gelling system, where the formulation is directly injected, which will form a gel, and it will protect the animal against the penetration of microorganisms during the dry cow period. Now, then we developed a post-milking teat dip formulation. This is something which can be used daily. Now, this basic concept is already well known all over the world. Even in India, there are a lot of products. Now, here the product is dipped, the teats are dipped, or the product is sprayed onto the teat. Here, the basic active ingredient is usually an antiseptic, like chlorhexidine, iodides, povidone, iodophos. There are several other examples. Usually, they are colored to identify. Now, you can incorporate the antibiotic in a suitable polymer, a film forming agent. So then it will actually form a film which will act as a barrier. And this would be washed off every time. The next time the animal has to be milked, again, all this film has to be removed, and then the milking can take place. So this is a daily or twice daily teat dip. Now, in case of our formulation, we used two polymers which form a complex with calcium. Now, so here the two polymers together and cross-linking with calcium will have a very strong barrier, will be a strong barrier against entry of microorganisms. Now this we found it formed an effect in a test tube we tried. So it forms an effective film. So there are two solutions. Uh, the film formation was quick within 2 minutes, and the dried film was about 1 millimeter thick. Now we colored it, trying to see whether, although in the animal when it is not showing the color. Now the next is we tried the proof of concept where we sprayed the formulation and we checked for antimicrobial activity. Here we find that there is no growth in the where the test samples were sprayed. We have the film and we have sprayed the test samples and inoculated it. Now for the dipping technique, we used a glove. A glove finger was cut. In this, we have put solidified agar. We formed a film on it. So we dipped it in the two film forming solutions and it formed a film. Now, then we have, as we have done with our in vitro model for DCT, we have dipped it in a sand and S. aureus mixture. Now, this was done periodically, and these samples were then inoculated into, these were incubated and checked for growth. Now, here again, we find that there is no growth in any of the formula where it has been treated with the teat dip. So the glove fingers which had the layer of the teat dip has not shown growth, whereas positive control has shown growth. So in this again, this formulation again, we have to work further. More studies have to be done, animal studies. Now, next is we move to wound care or wound healing formulations. Now, animals develop, I think, of course, humans also develop the wounds, but in animals, since they are out in the open, there are a lot of chances and they remain open to the environment. Different types of wounds which are seen in animals, sometimes they're very severe. Now, commonly, bandages and wound dressings are used because these will not work with animals weight or when they're moving, it will abrade against certain objects or one they might bite it off. So there are various problems. So common bandages and wound dressings will not work for animals. It is a little difficult. Now basically any bandage or any wound dressing, any wound healing preparation should protect and cover the wound, absorb any exudates, prevent infections, reduce inflammation. Also in case of animals, we should keep away from insects and ensure wound healing. Now it should provide a protective layer, create an ideal moist environment to ensure effective wound healing and remove wound debris. And last, it should not attach to the newly formed tissue. If it gets embedded in that, it will become very painful to remove it. It will again create a wound. Now, again here we are the same. Again, another point is the animals may lick the wounds. It is unaesthetic for pet owners. Now, we developed an in situ film forming system where we use the antimicrobial agent silver nanoparticles. Now, here we, because of we thought of avoiding an antibiotic, because an antibiotic can cause again, we spoke of residues. Silver nanoparticles would be a more eco-friendly in terms of it has good antimicrobial properties. Silver is also, it is used in food, various food products, and hence it will not cause any environmental hazards or any food effects. And also we developed an easy method, one-step process for preparing the silver nanoparticles in our lab. Now this is the film where we have used again polymers which form a film along with calcium. Now, took 3 minutes to form the film. We characterized the various properties in which again the key test is in vitro release. So we find that silver nanoparticles, very small amount of the uh, the films release a very small amount, but this is within the MIC of the formulation. Again, antimicrobial activity, the films placed on the seeded agar surface has given us antibiotic activity, which is evident up to 3 days. Now, these are the scanning electron microscopic images of the sterile and the unsterile, the sterile films, blank, and the silver loaded films. Percent swelling, overall about 86% was the swelling which is observed, around 80 in both the cases. Percent moisture retained. So here we looked at, we placed the films at 32% relative humidity and 75% relative humidity. Now, this mimics a condition similar to dry wound, and here in this case, it mimics the wet wound where there is a lot of exudate. So in either case, we find that where there is a dry wound, moisture can be given to the skin surface to ensure effective healing. Where there is a lot of exudate, it can be absorbed. So both ways the film can work. Now, these are some animal trials which were carried out with Dr. Samad's support, where he has taken our formulation to different farms, and we can see that different wounds. This was a wound in the neck region, then on the foot of the cow, near the hoofs. This is a injury on the right thigh and a teat injury. So in all these cases, we can see that within 5 days, the wound has healed effectively. So in summary, I can say that we have successfully developed in our institute, in our pharmaceutics research lab, prototype barrier formulations for in the form of in situ gelling systems, which can form a plug as a teeth sealant. We have developed systems which can form again an in situ gel film for post milking teeth dip, which can be applied twice a day, and it can be easily. Now, this is an aqueous system. It is not an organic based system, so it can be easily washed off. We are using grass polymers that is generally regarded as safe, so they will not have any toxic or hazardous effects. We also, regarding for wound healing, we have developed the spray on film forming formulation. Now, both formulations we have applied for the patent, and some discussions about commercialization are on. There are a lot of challenges, and we are trying to sort out each of them one by one. I think this is a lot of work which we have done over almost the last more than 10 years. I think we started these formulations somewhere in 2008 or so about 12 years. And I would like to acknowledge a lot of people. Key among them is Dr. Samad, because it was through his uh, discussions that we got into this field. And we realized that there are so many types of animals, so many challenges, and a lot of students of mine got interested in doing this type of work. Further, from the team of Bombay Veterinary College, Dr. Gaikwad, Dr. Galdar, and Dr. Banalikar. Because Dr. Banalikar, we had a discussion about some vaccine delivery, and there also he was a person who gave us a lot of support. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Ziba Parker, who's a consultant in USA, and she has also been instrumental in encouraging us to do these projects and given us new ideas. Funding support from two consultancy, the from Dr. Samaj's team, Messrs. Materius and Messrs. Infovet. And of course, I would like to acknowledge my students. Started with Mohit. He was the person who worked on the DCT formulation. Then Rajesh also supported him and other projects. Isha and Kaveri have continued the work when those challenges came up in the commercialization, whatever challenges, and they have worked on both the wound healing as well as the teat sealant. Hemali has also been doing a lot of veterinary project and supported these, because whenever samples had to be sent for all this, it was a teamwork in the lab. All of them would get involved. Arish, who's worked on the post-milking teat dip. Unmesh and Satnam have also worked on veterinary projects and supported in some of these projects. So this is my research group, where I think I should point out to Mohit. Mohit is the first person who started, then Rajesh. I think this is my entire team. There are many more. I think these students gifted this to me on my birthday, and I think there are many more students who have added now. And a very big thank you to all the students, because they are the people who make us realize the projects. Otherwise, having ideas is no use. We need students who will dedicatedly and with sincerity work on the project. So I think this is a big thank you to my team. This is our college, Bombay College of Pharmacy, situated at Kalina. It is one of the premier pharmacy colleges in India, governed by Indian Pharmaceutical Association, Maharashtra State Branch. Now we have got autonomous status since this academic year. It is approved by various regulatory bodies, and also we have got the accreditation from National Board of Accreditation. So I would also like to acknowledge my institute, because this is a place where I could execute and work on all these projects along with the students. I will finally say that I think often, especially this pandemic, whenever there is a pandemic, then we get panicky. But basically, I think we need a lot of rethinking. We need to think of One Health, where we have the environmental health. So we have to look after the plants, the veterinary, the animals, public health. So we have to ensure that we conserve the flora and fauna of the globe. And this is a initiative by in Sweden, One Health. So a very big thank you for giving me this opportunity, for giving me a patient listening, and all of you stay safe, and let us hope this pandemic will subside and we come to normal in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, really.
I think I took a little
Very
longer
informative
time.
lecture, ma'am.
I could not share many things because of patent and commercialization. So detailed data I cannot reveal. Thank you.
Madam, thank you very much. I would like to share some important thing about the today's webinar. The senior life member of Indian Society of Veterinary Medicine, Dr. A. Samad, he has also joined. Abdul Samad sir, he has joined. Dr. Umesh Dimri, yes, Dr. Umesh Dimri sir, he is a principal scientist at IVRI. Dr. Nitin Bhatia sir, he is from Mentas Pharmaceuticals, Veterinary Division. Dr. Gautam Bojne sir from Nagpur Veterinary College. Dr. Balaji Ambore sir from Shirwar. Dr. D.A. Pawalkar sir from Mumbai, and Dr. Tatara Rasal from Parban, India also joined. Apart from this, faculty from other disciplines that also joined, especially veterinary pharmacology, and undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhD student, they have also joined. Again, madam, I would like to congratulate that n number of messages they are available right now on my screen. They are showing that very nice presentation, very informative session. At the same time, the information supplemented during this presentation is helpful for them to think, to undertake PG research project or PhD research project in this area. And some people, they are willing to contact with you also. There is one message from Dr. Sood, I think so. He want your contact number and other thing to make the contact about the formulation development and other things. Madam, some of the questions are there. I would like to take that questions very quickly. Dr. Yamar Srinivasan from Chennai, he is willing to ask whether the wound healing film has enhanced the wound healing. Okay, what are the film you have prepared? Whether these have been compared with the conventional cream or gel which are available in the market.
No, we have not compared it with conventional system. Okay, that still remains to be done. There is still a lot of remaining to be done. But we have in vitro, we have compared with a free drug and film.
Second question is that, ma'am, from Dr. Manju Roy, madam,
Yeah.
have you made your wound healing film commercialized?
No. We have not commercialized it. It is still in process. There are discussions going on. Okay, so that is still in process. There are still a lot of questions to be answered, and it is taking some time.
I'd like to, Galdar,
Yeah,
I'd like
Dr.
to
Yes,
add
yes,
here.
sir, welcome, sir. Yeah, Samat sir is there. I would like to welcome Samat sir to interact on this ISBM forum.
Yeah,
Welcome,
we
sir.
have the work
Thank you.
under the guidance of Dr.
Just would
Kamal.
like to,
So,
yeah, just would like to add on wound healing spray. Somebody asked, whether we have compared it with other,
yeah.
other formulations.
Yeah.
No, we have not. But what we have done is, we have treated more than 100 cases now, and we had given these to different, veterinarians in the field as well as in the farm, and we asked them to take a photograph of the wound before spraying and then once the healing has taken place. And most of them have reported that it is very rapid healing, and within 5 to 7 days you have total healing. And the best part of it is you don't have to peel off the film gets digested, hydrolyzed automatically. Whereas there are other films that are available in USA and Europe. There, what happens? Once the wound has healed, you have to remove that film, and removal of the film many times also causes damage to the tissue, which has new tissue which has generated. So in our case, you don't have to peel it off; it gets healed properly. And in a lot of cases, we have found that you don't even see scar. We've treated very big wound, as long as 3.5 to 4 inches, very badly even infected wound we have treated. So it works extremely well, and we have also given to some pharmaceutical companies, because they wanted to conduct independent trials. So there is 2 international veterinary pharmaceuticals who have taken this product for testing independently, because they would like to do it independently, and both of them. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, just
and both of them have reported very good results. So even from independent pharmaceutical industry who are interested in this product, they have also reported very good results. So this is what I wanted to add.
Thank you, sir. Madam, again there is a query from Dr. Anuruj Sood. Where was gamma scintigraphy studies were carried out, and why the study could not be continued for plug retention for longer than 12 hours?
No, that is because we have conducted it at Bombay Veterinary College itself on that gamma scintigraphy system. Now, that is because of the limitation of technetium half-life, right? It is only about 6 hours. So we cannot image it for longer period of time. After a period of time, the scintillations will reduce and we will not be able to capture it, right? Then maybe we'll have to use something with a long half-life, isotope with a long half-life, which would not be uh, ethically possible. So that's why we were trying this X-ray and we developed all those in vitro models. I
Okay.
hope that answers your question, Dr. Stewart.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. Madam, again, there is one question from Dr. Yildi Patel, but they are unable to type in the chat box. Dr. Nilesh, can we ask Dr. Yildi Patel to start his microphone and ask the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sure, sir.
Shall I stop sharing the slide because
Yeah, you can stop sharing the slide, ma'am.
how do you
Dr.
do that?
Yildi Patel, are you
I
there?
have unmuted Dr. L.D. Patel.
How do I stop sharing? Not able to.
He is willing to ask about some biodegradable polymer film.
Yeah, okay. I am. How do I stop sharing? I'm not
I think
able
he is not in he is not in good network. That's why he is again muting
okay,
himself.
okay. Fine. Hey, I have. Can you just help me how to stop sharing?
There is one box on the upper side, ma'am. Stop
Yeah,
sharing.
got it. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Each time I use it, I forget. Okay. Is it put in the chat box?
In the chat box.
Biodegradable polymer film. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here I think basically all these polymers that we've used are all biodegradable and they're all from, what we call, they may be semi-synthetic or natural polymers. So they're all modified polymers or natural polymers. So is there anything other than that specific? And they are all grass polymers. That is, they are all permitted to be used, generally regarded as safe.
Okay. Most of the questions which are available with me on chat box, ma'am, I have covered up that questions. Again, those participants, they are interested to ask the question, they can communicate me. I will send that email to madam for its needful answers or needful clearances concern.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, madam, thank you very much for your nice presentation, ma'am. And it is really a eye-opening session for us to develop a barrier system for prevention and control of mastitis. Okay. Madam, again, thank you very much. I do request Dr. Pawalkar, sir, Dr. D.A. Pawalkar, Assistant Professor of Veterinary Preventive Medicine from Mumbai Veterinary College, to propose vote of thanks. Pawalkar, sir, please. Pawalkar, sir. Nilesh, please help Dr. Pawalkar.
Sir, I am not able to find him.
Dr. D.A. Pawalkar. Pawalkar, sir, are you
I
there?
have unmuted him, sir.
Just check it once.
Dr. Pawalkar, sir, kindly speak now.
Yeah, here join. I do request Dr. Pawalkar, sir, to offer vote of thanks.
Paulkar sir, please speak, sir.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir. You are audible and visible. I do request you to offer the vote of thanks, please.
Okay. Good evening to all. On behalf of Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine and Zydus Animal Health, I thank all participants for being here and making this webinar successful and participating in discussions and asking questions. I would like to thank Dr. S.K. Mishra sir, founder president of ISVM, for his blessing, although he could not join us due to his health reasons. Further, I would like to mention that it is an always great experience to listen Mala madam, and the way she explains the complicated issues in a simple way. Thank you, madam, for being with us and accepting our invitation and explaining such a difficult subject in a very simple way. I will take this opportunity to thank my professor, my patron, Dr. Samat sir, for being with us. Sir, it is always a great experience to listen from you, and you encourage us throughout our student life and early phase of our service for accepting such challenges and to involve in such projects, and till today you are encouraging many of the veterinarians all over the world undertake such projects, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us and guiding us. I'm also thankful to Dr. Norial sir, president of ISVM, for encouraging and guiding us for organizing such a seminars. Today's seminar as well as the seminars in the past. Thank you very much, sir. I must thank Dr. Ram Prabhu sir, General Secretary of ISVM, for his continuous follow-up and continuous guidance for organizing a series of webinars. Dr. Galdar, who is an instrumental in organizing this webinar, and all of us know that his enthusiasm for novel activities. So he deserves a big thank you, Galdar sir. My special thanks to Dr. Nilesh Sandhu, who is always behind the curtain and ensures the smooth conduct of webinars. Sandhu sir, thank you. Finally, the team working for registration and e-certification, particularly Dr. S.K. Singh and Dr. Sunil. Thank you very much for both of you for your contribution for preparation as well as conduction and post conduction activities that we are going to conduct. So finally, I will thank each and everyone who contributed to make this webinar successful. Thank you very much. Galdar sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. With the kind permission from General Secretary of Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Ram Prabhu sir, I declare that today's webinar is over. Again, I do request all the participants that in next Saturday also we are holding a webinar on equine medicine. I request all the participants to join for the next webinar also. Thank you very much. Good night. Thank you, madam.
Yeah,
Namaskar.
Good night.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Nilesh.